I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of having gaming magazines as a kid, but I was quite fond of them when they were a lot more of a thing. My first was a little Australian number called Nintendo Gamer. It lasted all of 4 issues, but you know, young me cherished the 2 that I had. And there was a way of making every game featured in it feel like something really important. Whether it was a review or just a full-page spread ad, it didn't matter. Battle of the Bands or Doodle Hex are still notable and worth keeping an eye on in my mind to this day. Which brings us to today's game, which in my aforementioned issue 2 of Nintendo Gamer, saw an ad for and it stuck with me forever despite never hearing about it again for years to come. And it was this that taught me a valuable lesson in consuming adverts. You should always listen to them. Eledees, or Elebits if you are in an NTSC region, was Konami's answer to the newfound potential of the Nintendo Wii, coming out as a release title in Japan and within a year of the Wii's release elsewhere in the world. The concept of the game revolves around seeking out these little Pikmin-like creatures called Eledees, which are described as beings made of electricity, and in the game's world, they are the source of power used to fuel all electronics. Our protagonist is a young boy named Kai, whose parents are Eledees researchers. Due to the nature of their work, according to Kai at least, they are often preoccupied with Eledees more than him, leaving him with a mighty disdain for them. The Eledees, not his parents. On this particular night, a lightning strike causes all the Eledees to act strangely and all the power goes out. His parents hurriedly leave to investigate at their laboratory, leaving an upset Kai alone in the house. Realizing that he can't even watch his favorite show with the power out, he takes his father's LED capture gun and resolves to round them up to get the power restored. You control Kai from a first-person perspective, wielding his parents' capture gun. The gun works not unlike the physics gun from Gary's mod, shooting out a beam that can latch onto objects, pick them up and turn them around and such. Half-Life 2 was a big inspiration for the game's physics actually, so it's no surprise on the similarities there. Anyway, when not throwing furniture around the room, you'll be aiming it to shoot at Eledees, who will then be sucked up into the gun. This converts them into electricity. The goal of each level is to explore the given area, hunting down as many Eledees as you can to reach a target amount of wattage. As you collect more watts, the lights will start to turn on around you and electrical devices will start to receive power. You can then turn these on to unearth power Eledees, which don't add to your wattage, but do level up your capture gun. With the higher level, you're able to pick up heavier objects, allowing you to access more areas and reveal more hidden Eledees. So the game loop really does boil down to just collecting normal Eledees to find power Eledees, so that you can collect more normal Eledees. Pretty simple power creep, if you'll excuse the pun. If you're so inclined, there are a bunch of hidden puzzles to solve too. They start off simple, and admittedly, kinda stay that way. It's mostly in the wheelhouse of simply putting objects into slots with varying levels of abstractness. Place the colored block in the slots. Place the books in the right order on the shelf. Throw empty cans in the recycling bin. Usually, when you first encounter such things, it's pretty obvious what you need to do, but as the levels go on, you might find that you'll need to put a bit more effort into finding the needed objects. But even in its simplicity, still, I think it adds a lot to the exploration of the levels, and just, it's really fun to experiment. In every level, there are a slew of power-ups to use as well. Most of them are quality of life improvements, like getting a temporary radar or making your capture gun target any LED that the cursor hovers over. But some are a bit more involved, like the cookie that attracts nearby Eledees, or the pulse ball, which stuns any poor creature you drag it past. They're littered all over the place, but your favorites will differ depending on your playstyle. Actually, that's not true, your favorite will be the vacuum laser. Guarantee it. But the point does remain, they're optional little helpy doodads that can help make the experience a little bit more fun if you like what they have to offer. But chances are you'll have a couple of favorites and then you'll just ignore the rest for the rest of the game. And each level feels like it has its own identity, even when you're going through the same areas. For instance, the first time you tackle the living room, it's a normal romp of exploration and figuring out what kind of objects are around the place. The second time, heavy furniture has been placed in key locations, preventing you from physically accessing key sections filled with Eledees. This forces you to play it as a shooting gallery of sorts, until you can scrounge up enough power Eledees to move them out of the way. It might be a bit disappointing to some to find yourself in the same area 3 or 4 times, but in my books at least, I feel it's all mixed up nicely enough to allow the revisit to feel justified. And that's not to say you'll only be hanging out inside your house either. Kai's hunger for vacuuming up Eledees takes him onto the streets and then some, so you won't be starved for new areas to explore. Something that helps to make each level feel unique are the restrictions placed in some of them. For instance, you might have a limit on how many items can be broken, forcing you to be much more careful with how you upend a room, lest you smash yet another priceless vase. Or you might have to be especially quiet, making even closing drawers an exercise in careful precision. Ultimately, they amount to just being more cautious as you play, but it is nice to mix it up a bit from the game just turning into a mess up the room simulator. Though, even without restrictions, you'll find just throwing stuff everywhere and causing a ruckus isn't the best course of action. The messier the room, the harder it is to navigate, even blocking doorways and the like. And if you're particularly averse to a sense of order, you might summon black Eledees who will make it their business to punish you for any wayward zaps their way. All that is to say, it pays to be kind to your environment. Oh, and did I mention the level editor? It was a really big and notable feature of the game actually, because it was one of the earlier uses of WeConnect 24. It was even set up and ready to go before the service even went live. It's exactly what it says on the tin. You can use any of the levels of the game as a base and populate it with the objects and Eledees. As far as I could tell, you really could just make levels as good as the story mode ones, so that's super duper cool. Granted, while the controls are perfect for tearing apart rooms, it's a lot harder to create those same rooms with them. So while the potential is there, I imagine it wouldn't be in the patient zone of most people. But that doesn't stop it from being a really cool mode of the game. I bet back in the day when the level share service was still up and running, there were some really cool creations out there. Looking around online, there's some evidence of people having made mazes and such, so I really wish I had the chance to see them. But alas, its time has come and gone. And out of nowhere, Eledees has multiplayer too. The goal being a simple catch more Eledees than your opponent kind of jam. The one caveat to this is that one player has to control Kai, while the others can only point and shoot their capture guns. This means that one player gets all the say on where they can go and can willingly induce motion sickness on cue. But the others also get the first dibs on Eledees on screen without having to worry about movement. The jury's still out on if that's a fair trade or not, but the fact that it's an option is just neat, and I've busted it out to play with a friend or two just fine. Something I thought I'd have trouble with is the motion controls. Personally, I remember struggling to open doors and meticulously trying to place DVDs into disc trays back when I first played it, some 10 odd years ago. And I was going in expecting to not enjoy such frustrations yet again. But pleasantly, I've been surprised by it really not being that bad at all. I have no idea if I'm just doing something differently or what, but for the most part, I had no issues putting toast in toasters. So I gotta say, the motion controls are super good, no real complaints there on this run at least. But amongst all my glowing praise, there is one huge gripe I've got with Eledees, and believe you me, it's entirely superfluous. I'm gonna show you a clip and let's see if you can guess what it is.
My mom and dad study Eledees, and they love them even more than me.
Any guesses? Let's try another one.
So I guess this is all the Eledees' fault. What's this? Sky Eledees.
Vomit in the mouth. Now, I'm no voice actor, but I'm sure a lot of effort went into the voice of Kai. But I think it's pretty telling that no one went to the effort to add the European voice actor to the VA database. I really just don't like the over-the-top anime whiny kid voice. Thankfully, the American one isn't quite so egregious.
My mom and dad study Eledees, and they love them even more than me.
And the Japanese one sounds perfectly fine.
パパとママはエレビッツの研究をしていて、僕よりエレビッツの方が大好きなんだ。
I really don't know what made them feel the need to take an extra half a year just to localize it badly for a European audience though. Thankfully, the artwork for the cutscenes is jaw-droppingly gorgeous, so it's a lot easier to just block out your ears and enjoy the pretty pictures. And if you're thinking the art looks familiar, you'd be right. The artist is Akihito Tsukushi, now quite famously known as the creator of Made in Abyss. The fact that Eledees is graced with such artistry is wild, and really goes a long way to giving it its identity. And might I quickly gush about the music like I often do? What a hidden gem of a soundtrack. Part jazz, part ethereal synth, it's just a joy to play to it. Makes for some lovely listening outside of the game as well, of course. My personal favourites are My Favorite Hero Show and Multiplayer Mode, But truly, even the options theme is impeccable. Truly do yourself a favor and check out the whole thing sometime. Great study music. So I really love Eledees. I find it a really unique addition to the Wii's library that, despite a strong lot of marketing, just didn't seem to stick to the cultural zeitgeist very much. Despite this though, it surprisingly got a sequel on DS. It's a completely different game to what we have here though, so that's another video for another day. But it's pretty cool that Konami saw it fit to give the series another entry. Looking back, a lot of the reviews on Metacritic give forth a lot of weird reasons to mark it down. Poor graphics, a glorified tech demo, too similar to Katamari Damacy, not similar enough to Katamari Damacy. As a Wii launch title, I suppose it was held up to a level of scrutiny as needing to carry the Wii on its shoulders. But even in those terms, it's a better tech demo than Wii Sports if we're being real. But hey, that's the joy of retro gaming. You don't have to consider games with all the baggage of context, good or bad. You can just appreciate it for what it is. And as far as I'm concerned, Eledees is an absolute gem.